Hey everyone, it's Barb from Barb's Book Reviews. I'm back. I've got the stitches taken out of my cheek, and I'm here to talk about the books I've read this month. Um, I have 4 really good books to recommend, 5 for some of you, which you'll see shortly. All of them were great. All of them are worth buying. So the first one up is Lisa Jewell's The Family Remains. A little backstory: about 3 or 4 years ago, when I was at Barnes and Noble, The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell was the book of the month. And it was the book club book. Everyone in the store was required to read it. Everyone in the store loved it. I've never seen anything like it. Usually you get like 1 or 2 people that don't like the book. Every single one of us were like, oh my God, this is the best book. And it was about a woman, Libby Jones, who inherits a house and discovers that she's the surviving infant of a cult murder-suicide. And that most of the victims are dead. The only ones alive are her, a long-lost brother and sister named Henry and Lucy, and this mysterious other person named Fen. I don't want to give away too much. The book is about manipulation, and it's done through the eyes of a sociopath. You really get to see how people manipulate someone into doing things they don't expect to do. The Family Remains picks up with that family and talks about Henry and Lucy. And again, Fen, the other survivor. And once again, it's about gaslighting, manipulating, abuse. Lisa does this fantastic job of getting into the minds of a crazy person and making them sound almost sane while you're reading it. And then they're unhinged, but yet they don't sound it. I mean, it's fantastic. You don't have to read The Family Upstairs to read The Family Remains. They are standalone books, even though they involve the same family and the same big inciting incident. I recommend you read both because you're going to love them. One of the other things that Lisa does really terrifically is just when you think everything is tied up with a bow. I mean, you're reading the last chapter and both times you're like, oh, okay, everything's happy, la, la, la. Then she puts in an epilogue of 1 or 2 pages that shoots everything out of the water. And you're left with your jaw hanging. Family Remains did it so well. I mean, the last paragraph of this book literally had me going, oh my God. And I'm not the only one. Everyone who's read it, that last paragraph was brilliant. So highly, highly recommend both books. The Family Remains and The Family Upstairs. Lisa Jewell is one of the best psychological thriller writers out there. I can't get enough of her. And I think you guys are going to find it you're going to find her just as addicting. Okay. The next book I have up is The Mayfair Bookshop by Eliza Knight. This book kind of surprised me. The book is about Nancy Mitford, who was one of the fabulous Mitford sisters. For those who don't know, the Mitford sisters in the 30s and 40s were like they were like the Kardashians or the Kennedys of England. They were beautiful young socialites. They were the most beautiful. They were the most brightest. Everyone adored them. Everything they did got covered in the news. Nancy was one of the more normal ones. 2 of them went on to become fascists, and actually 3 became fascists tied to the fascist movement. One became a very close friend of Adolf Hitler's. Another was married to the leader of the fascist party in England. Nancy married a society man, became a mid-list author, and worked at a bookshop in Mayfair during World War II. I kind of thought this would be more of a lighter read, and what surprised me is how deeply emotional this book is. Nancy was depressed and suffered from imposter syndrome and insecurity and a feeling of unfulfillment for much of her life. I think that Eliza did a fantastic job of tapping into that emotion. You really could feel her frustration in these scenes about being an unhappily married woman, about not feeling like she contributed enough, not feeling like she was talented enough. I think any woman who's ever felt imposter syndrome, which is every woman, will identify with this. I think that it's very easy to like Nancy and to feel like you want her to win. The other great thing about this is she does not go through all of Nancy's life. She ends on a very hopeful note. And I liked that because you really felt like, yay, Nancy won finally. I was really happy with the ending. There is a modern timeline in it as well. I was not as engrossed in that one. It's quibbling though. I think a lot of people will like it. It's very sweet. It's more of a romancy type of thing. I was more drawn in by Nancy's story just because I really felt the emotion. But Eliza does a fantastic job. I think that she's got some other books coming on. I know she's got one coming out about the corgis. She's an author to watch in historical fiction. And I highly, highly, again, I'm going to say highly, highly a lot because I like all the books, but I do recommend this book. It's part of our Step Into the Story reading challenge, and I'm glad I read it because I might not have picked it up otherwise. The other book, another book that we have here, if I can pull up the slide, is our Step Into the Story title of the month, which was Dear Mrs. Bird. It was nice to read this book after last month's very heavy read. This book was lighter. It is fluffier. It is about the home front during World War II. It's a story of a heroine, Livy, who takes up writing advice letters that the advice columnist rejects. What I liked about it was, one, it was nice to read about the home front. It was nice not to read a World War II book that did not involve the resistance or the Holocaust camps or battles or death. It was a much more calmer book. It's very poignant. It starts out fluffy, but it does get poignant. I mean, she makes a very good point of reminding you that the war is there. It surprised me just how plucky the Londoners were. Like, they really, really felt it was their duty to live as normal a life as possible. And this book shows how really normal their world was. And it was almost like, this is what we do. And oh, they're bombing us. You just really left with a lot of respect for people who lived in England, I'll tell you that. It's also a book about the clash between generations. The original Mrs. Bird is post-Victorian, early Edwardian, and she has that mindset. Whereas our heroine, Livy, represents the new, modern, independent woman. And the questions that she's answering represent the real problems that women faced during the war, with foreigners coming into their country, bad romances with soldiers, bad decisions that they might have made that they wouldn't have made back during peacetime. And it's based on real life problems that people wrote into these columns. It's the first one in a series. The second one is called Yours Cheerfully. So I think you know that it's going to have a happy ending. It does resolve itself nicely. We really liked it. Donna Allward and Donna loves it because it was World War II anyways, but we both really enjoyed this book. And like I said, if you're tired of reading heavy stories about the war, this one might be just what you need to kind of perk up your spirits. And then the last book I have to talk about is Christina McMorris's The Way We Hide. I had never read Christina McMorris. I want to read Sold on a Monday. I have reached for it, I don't know how many times in the bookstore, and then put it down because I needed to buy something else. But I am going to go buy that book now. I have a soft spot for Christina because years ago, she and I twice finaled in the same national contest. And we both didn't, well, first time we both didn't win, the second time I won. But so we come from the same background, and she's very talented. I've always known she was talented, and I was kicking myself that I've never read the book. She sold me on this one because, again, it was a very unusual premise. It was about a magician, a female magician and escape artist who's recruited by MI5 to help invent devices for World War II. And a large chunk of the book talks about some of the things that they invented and some of the devices they had, which was really, really fascinating. The other thing I liked about this is the jumping off point for the story is a tragedy called the Italian Hall Christmas tragedy, which happened in 1913. And it's when a group of minor children were there to receive Christmas presents, and there were families, and someone falsely yelled fire, and dozens of people were trampled to death as they ran to the door. It was horrific. Most of them were kids. And Christina uses that as the anchor for everything that happens in her heroine's life after that. It develops her personality. It explains why she behaves the way she does. It shows why that helped her get into magic, how that helped her get into magic, how magic then played such a role in helping her survive all the other hurdles she had in her life, how it affected her romances, how it affected her personal decisions. It's You liked the character. She wanted her to win. She's very strong. I enjoyed it. Christina gets extra points because she pulled a twist about 7/8 of the way through, where she threw the rule book out and did a few things that caught me off guard, and I wasn't expecting it. I thought I had it planned out in my head how it was going to end, and she threw in a twist. So this just came out a few weeks ago. She's a New York Times bestseller from Sold on Monday. If you haven't read that one, get it. And then I recommend you pick up The Ways We Hide. It was a very enjoyable read. Again, it was an unusual take on World War II, and I think that most of us are ready for some unusual takes. That's it. Those are the 4 books. I will be back again first week of November with books. I hope to pick up my reading pace now that summer's over. I admit I got a little distracted by sunshine. Problem is now it's distracted by football. So I don't know if I'll be reading as much or not. Let's hope we do. And I want to remind you that I will be back with Donna next week on the 11th when we talk about Joan by Catherine Chen with Sydney from HF Chit Chat. She will explain what that is, but Sydney Young, who we're very excited to talk about this book that I think is going to be pretty controversial. And I think we're all going to bring some very differing opinions on it. Again, thanks for watching. If you like this, please subscribe, and subscribe also to Step Into the Story and Step Into the Story Writing Room. We'd love to have you. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.